looking for the recording from last week. It's still on my phone. Forgot to post it. I'm sorry. I will get them both posted today. So, but I'm human. So. All right, so we're in chapter 6. The first seal. It's a rider on a white horse. Once the seal's broken, or once Jesus breaks the seal, rider on a white horse comes forward. He's a rider that has a bow but no arrows. There will be world conquest with this rider. But it'll be through peaceful means. That's why there's a bow but no arrows. He could be, he could attack and he could, but he doesn't have, it's mainly through peaceful means. He also has a crown. I didn't put that in here, but he also has a crown. So this one is about conquest. It's about taking over the world, or uniting the world. Let's put it that way. So some people believe because it's a white horse that it's Jesus, but it's not. This is an imposter. This is somebody impersonating Jesus, somebody that wants to be like Jesus, but is not. So he's a false god, whoever he is. Okay, some people believe this is the Antichrist that is going to come on the scene. So, and that's very much entirely possible. Okay, and then the second seal is a red horse. This rider has the power to remove peace from the earth. There'll be much bloodshed. And not just when Billy hits the concrete. So, chaos will come with this, and there'll be a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion, which, we got that going on today. So we got so much misinformation. We talked about that last week a little bit. You hear this is the best way to deal with COVID this day, and then tomorrow it's going to be a new way to deal with it. And it's just, it's just crazy. You don't know what to believe anymore. So there's going to be a lot of that, and it's going to be much, much worse. There'll be war in many places. And so basically, belief is that the Antichrist will come to power peacefully, and then he will turn into a ruthless dictator that will try to put down anybody that doesn't believe the same things that he does and doesn't want to align with what he does. And they could believe that they are doing it righteously, that they are doing it for God. And in some ways, possibly, if you want to look at it that way, because God is overseeing all these judgments. So, but this person feels like they're doing what God's called them to do in a lot of ways. So, okay. Then the third one. Third one looks somewhat like what we got going on right now. Rider on a black horse, holding scales. He represents famine and death. We got, in some parts of the world, we got a lot of that going on. Cost of food is incredibly high. Prices or inflation is skyrocketing around the world. Is that going on right now? In this country? Yes, it is. So, one of the commentaries I was reading in here, it talks about holding a pair of scales, and I heard a voice from the four living beings saying, a loaf of wheat bread or 3 loaves of barley will cost a day's pay. And don't waste the olive oil and wine. Okay, so, and one of the commentaries I was reading, it says that equation right there about the loaves of bread and the barley, that first century readers reading this letter would have seen that as 12 to 15 times what they would have normally paid for that. So it's going to be incredibly high. It's going to be a lot of shortages. There's also going to be a lot of, if you're not complying with with the leader's view and everything else, you're not going to be entitled to get it, even if it is there. And so there's going to be a lot of that too. Okay, people will barely be able to afford to feed themselves, much less their families. And so there's going to be a lot of starvation going on. Many people will definitely starve to death. Olive oil and wine. There's a couple different views on that. It could be to conserve 2 staples. You need those things, especially during those times. Water wasn't really good to drink, so they drank a lot of wine. And then other people think that the olive oil and wine represents to protect the Jews and the Christians from the coming judgments. And that's another take and another belief on that. And we'll get more into that today when we talk about these. So does anybody have any questions about the first three judgments or first three seals from Revelation? Everybody ready to see what happens next then?
No, but everything you got up there, it's coming. It's here. It's absolutely here.
40 years.
Right. One other thing, and I didn't review it, I didn't put it in here, but one other thing that we talked about is Matthew 24. Jesus talks about what the end is going to be like. And he talks about how bad it's going to be. There's going to be rumors of wars, there's going to be lots of wars, and there's going to be people claiming to be Christ and all this other stuff. And he says, and talks in great, so I encourage you to go read that. It's at towards the end of Matthew 24. But he says, Jesus' own words in there say that this is just the birth pains of what's to come. This is just the start. So are we witnessing the birth pains of what's to come? Probably. That this is probably the start. This could be the start. But again, throughout history, there have been times when you had Napoleon that tried to conquer the world. Hitler tried to conquer the world. There have been times in a lot of other generations that people thought the same thing, that all this kind of stuff blew up and started happening, and there was a lot of wars, and and with war comes famine and death and pestilence and all kinds of other stuff, and a lot of ways for other people to die, which we're going to talk about more today. But there's that comes as a natural result of war. Over in Ukraine, where all this is going on right now, there's going to be a lot of that when all this is done, whatever happens and whatever the outcome is over there. Okay, but we do know, and I will say this, that the area where Russia is, and maybe even China, but to the northern parts over Israel, play a great deal in what happens in these events. And so Russia is viewed as a big player in what happens in the world stage during this time period. And so, are we got a guy over there now in charge that would love to just dominate the world. But, we don't know. This could very well be the birth pains that Jesus was speaking of and the start. But he did say, Jesus' own words were that this was just the start, and it would be sometime after that before it finally hit. And so, could be wild. So, and we don't exactly know when. There's a lot of different beliefs, and nobody really knows when exactly the 7-year clock is going to start on that whole exactly when it'll be. I suspect that the most common belief is that when the Antichrist makes the treaty with Israel for peace, that's when most scholars believe that the 7-year clock will start. But again, there's a lot of discrepancy about the 7-year clock too. And is it God's timing, or is it earthly timing, or what? And so it's a lot of, like I had said before, this book has got a lot of interpretation to it, and a lot of symbolism, and a lot of other stuff. And so we just gotta, try to understand as best we can, and look to God to give us direction and guidance on things. So, okay. So any questions before we go to the fourth seal? Any comments, thoughts? Everybody pretty clear? No?
Well, the only timing that counts is not man or anybody else's God's, period.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and
And he's the one that turns the clock on, not man.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's, and that's the thing, is we can all sit and speculate and everything else, but like you said, he's the only one. So, and we don't know. He's even said that when Jesus comes back and whatever, that it's that not even Jesus knew when it was. The Holy Spirit doesn't know when it is. So if somebody comes out and says, like they've done in the past, the rapture's going to happen October something 92 or whatever. I seem to remember somewhere around there was somebody running around telling it was going to happen in October of 92. Well, obviously it didn't. So, they don't know, because Nobody knows. God the Father is the only one that knows. So, so anyway, so that's what we got. So we're going to look at verses 7 and 8, which is the fourth seal. Okay? When the Lamb broke the fourth seal, I heard the fourth living being say, "Come." I looked up and saw a horse whose color was pale green. Its rider's name was Death. His companion was the Grave. These two were given authority over 1/4 of the earth to kill with the sword, famine, disease, and here's a pleasant thought, wild animals. Would y'all like to die that way? Be mauled and killed by a wild animal? Who made their lunch? Well, so.
That's
But-
interesting you mentioned the word pale green. That's not in the King James, the original.
Okay, what's the King James original say?
Well, it just says, when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see."
Doesn't give a color for the horse?
No,
You
Okay.
want a pale horse.
a pale horse, yeah.
Pale horse.
A pale
Okay.
horse, but not the green, you're right.
I was gonna say there should be some sort of color reference in there for this.
Well, you can
This is
take
what?
any color and make it a pale
Okay.
color, a pale peach, a pale green, a
Yeah.
pale blue.
Yeah, but he read green. I just,
Yeah, I'm
I taught
working.
first
I'm
grade,
working on the
that's
New
fine.
Living Translation. And I'm not a big. I read.
Sammy's colorblind, so he ain't gonna know no horse.
Right.
well, what he's saying, the difference between white and black, it's a pale color.
Yeah. Well, and that's what
Mine's a different version, it says pale green too.
Well, right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, and this is an artist's rendition of it, so, but the color is meant to represent death.
Right.
So each horse, the color of the horse is represented what's gonna happen a lot, and pale green is, kind of death.
Well, death, isn't that just black?
Well,
Sign of
yeah.
death is black, the Grim Reaper, black.
Yeah, but when somebody dies, they don't turn, they
Most
turn.
people wear black to the funeral.
Well, okay, yes, but as far as the when somebody actually dies, the body doesn't turn to a black color or anything like that. It will turn to some sort of a greenish kind of whatever color, and so that's why it kind of and the black horse is gonna need. I think there's a black. There'll be a black horse. Wasn't there already a black horse?
Yeah, there was already.
Yeah, it was the third one, yeah. So they already used the black horse for the third one, so, and that, and that represented death in a lot of ways because of starvation and the other stuff that was going on, so yeah, but yeah, so that's, okay, and, the rider's name, as it said in the passage, his name is Death, and he had somebody with him whose name was Hades. Okay, now what's the difference here? Anybody know the difference with this?
Hades over the underworld.
Yes. Death takes life from the body. Hades takes the soul. And so you're seeing here that you have death strikes first, and then Hades strikes next for those that don't believe. We don't have to worry about Hades as Christians because we will not be there. Okay? And so they're given power over 1/4 of the world. Okay? To kill with sword, famine, disease, and wild animal. Okay? Just out of curiosity, which way do you want to die of those four? Sword, disease, famine, or wild animal?
100 years old and I go to sleep.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's kind of the way I'd like to go too. So, we were talking yesterday when we were here a little bit about CPAP machines or whatever. I'm just like, Nicole was always like, there are worse things than dying in your sleep. So
A lot.
yeah.
That's the best one.
So, but anyways, yeah, you know.
Sleep.
But you know, if it were me and I had to pick, I think I'd rather have the sword because hopefully that would be a lot quicker than
Yeah.
starving to death or having disease or, you know. I want to be somebody's lunch after I'm dead if I'm gonna be that way. I don't want to.
After.
Yeah, exactly. So, but
Still stay bullet to the head, Bruce.
I know.
Get it done, just be done.
Yep. So, but so 1/4 of the population, 1/4 of the world, the population of the world right now, being about 8 billion. That would mean 2 billion people would die by this judgment. So, I don't know what the latest COVID numbers are up to after all this time, but I know we haven't reached 2 billion worldwide.
I think we hit 1 million a while back. That's what I was just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think that's right.
And everybody thinks that that's a lot, but wait until this happens. You know, that it's just going to be so much death and so much everything else. Okay, it's just so. These are yeah. So, and then there's okay, and then let me address this. That's what I was just figuring out what I was trying to say here. Let me just address this. Yes, today there's 8 billion people in the world. Some people are going to say, well, the rapture of the church is going to happen and there's going to be a lot of people taken out of here. So there won't be 8 billion people in the world at that point. Okay, and if that happens in that way, great. Like I said, the rapture, however that happens, when it happens, okay, fine. You know, myself, I'm not so convinced that it's going to happen before all this stuff starts, but that's just me. It's whatever, my belief on it. So, but basically don't get hung up on numbers, don't get hung up on what's, you know, how powerful it's going to be and stuff like that, okay? Because that's where we get into trouble is the whole body of Christ. We get into these divisions, we get into these things where we start arguing. And yes, there's different interpretations, people see things differently, and there's a lot of valid opinions out there. I'm getting ready to talk about one now that I just kind of recently, you know, have kind of seen and really almost makes sense to me. So, but you know, but there's a lot of different things, and you guys know I've always tried to bring out a lot of the different views here and stuff, talk about it. But just please, just don't get hung up on the unimportant stuff. Okay, it's going to be a bad judgment. Let's just say it that way. It's going to be bad. No matter how many people, like I said, you think it's just over 1 million that have died worldwide from COVID, and everybody is upset about that and doesn't like that number, and it's just, you know, taken back by that. Well, this is going to be far worse in reaching, and so, you know, let's just not get hung up on the numbers and you know, debate back and forth about this, because then that just takes us off track from where we want to go. But I do want to bring out some different things. One of the things is the timeline. Okay, now this is what they call. Anybody heard of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse?
Yeah.
We just talked about them. 4 horses, got riders on them. There's judgments with each one. Okay. Anybody heard any non-Christians talking about it?
I heard my grandson talk about it,
Okay.
but I don't know if he knows what he's talking about or not.
Yeah. Well, and they've made movies about it. So, you know, there's a lot of non-Christians that believe that there's going to be the apocalypse at the end and everything, and everybody's got a end of the world scenario, all religions, and you know, and a lot of people have end of the world scenarios, and a lot of people subscribe to, you know, talk about this 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So this is very, very popular belief through a lot of the world. So, and just it varies in different ways. That, you know, I'm sure that I haven't looked into the what it's talked about in the movies and stuff like that, but I'm sure that it's different than what we've been talking about here. So, but, okay. So, another thing I want to mention with this, the judgments and everything they're talked about in a different ways by different scholars. Again, as we said something earlier about God's timing. Some people think that this will only partially cover the 7-year period. Other people believe that this will cover the whole 7-year period, and that Christ will come back in seal number 6. Okay, and we're not going to get to that today, but that's a lot of people believe that his return is in seal number 6, and then there are others that don't see him coming back until all the judgments are done. And again, that falls under how you look at the judgments and things like that. Okay, these events might be happening quickly, but it will take some time for all of them to take full effect. Now, does that mean that you're going to have, once the war starts in seal number 2, you could have 2, 3, and 4 happen really quickly? All the seals happen, back to back to back, but it's going to take a while for the famine to kill. It's going to kill the disease to kill it. So it's going to kill. A lot of this stuff doesn't just happen overnight. So it's going to be, take a little while for that. And like I said, we need to remember what Jesus says in Matthew 24, that the end is not near at that time when these things start happening. So it is possible for these events might take a longer period of time than 7 years. Okay. So, and we're going to look here as we go further into the book. We're going to see how things are kind of defined out a little better and stuff, and how it all relates. And so, and I don't mean to confuse anybody. But I mentioned another scenario or another belief. Okay. Some people believe that these 4 judgments is all the rise of a major religion in the world, and that there'll be a leader of that religion will come to power peacefully, and then because that religion, and I'm not trying to single anyone out, so there is a belief that it is a certain one, but we see there are some religions in the world that if you don't believe what they believe, they will kill you and believe that God has told them to kill you. And some people believe that religion right now is actually gaining power throughout the world, growing. And
Yes, there's a church in Rock Hill, it's the Church of Satan.
okay,
Yeah, there's several of those.
Yeah.
In the
I
country.
was shocked, I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Debbie Huey, I couldn't believe it,
yeah.
I can't understand, I don't understand that.
So, well, some people, subscribe to that, and that doesn't surprise me either. And so that there is,
We got 5 states, gonna pass the sugar law.
yeah, that's some of the laws and beliefs that go with one of these religions, like you said, have been passed by some states and stuff where it's okay to take the law into your own hands, much like the Pharisees and the Sadducees did in Jesus' day by arresting Jesus and ordering, wanting him to be crucified. I mean, yeah, they still had to go through the Roman government to get it done, but they would, when they were trying to squelch out, when Saul was running around trying to squelch out the early church and everything, he was stoning people and killing people without the Romans, giving their blessing or whatever. He was just doing it in the name of God. And so, we see that's, and that religion believes that that's what they're doing. Is if you don't agree with them, then they have the right and in a lot of cases the obligation to kill you. So some people believe that this religion is going to come forth. It'll be it'll unite the world in a lot of ways. Be a one world religion, that you'll have to subscribe to and follow. That if you don't, they will start trying to kill you, and you will be outlawed and everything, which is going to be part of this towards the end days. There is going to be a one world religion. We mentioned it last week, and that there will be one government, there will be one currency, there will be one religion. There'll be, you're not going to be able to really think for yourself anymore. You're going to have, all this stuff, and so. That a lot of people believe that all these four judgments relate to that, and that they're, and if you don't subscribe to their religion, even if they haven't killed you yet, you're not allowed to buy and sell and trade anything and acquire anything. So you won't be able to get the food that you need. You won't be able, unless you do it on a black market or something like that or whatever. And again, that's all, we're going to see all that here in the next few chapters, that's all going to take place. And then to close it out, they feel that the 1/4 of the world means that there'll be 1/4 of the world will be completely sold out to this religion and will be in control of 1/4 of the earth to start out with. And then it will, as more judgments come along, we'll see that that's going to be, you'll have another 1/4 of the world, another 1/4 of the world, or a third of the world and stuff. And that they're just going to completely keep taking over, taking more chunks. And so that's a theory, that's something that was presented to me, and I was reading, and that, almost fits for me. And it could be something similar to that. It could be a rise of, and that could be how this comes into power, how this comes into play, is that somebody rises out of a certain religion and goes forward and does all this stuff. And so, do I totally subscribe to it? No, but I can see the possibility of it. Again, I'm not solely committed to any of these scenarios other than what's in the biblical text, that these things are going to happen. How they're going to happen, I don't have a clue. But, and that's where we just got to take the word of God for, okay, these are the events that are going to happen. How do we know what's going to happen with them and stuff like that? We don't know for sure. And we also know that, like when we get to number 6, where there's earthquakes and there's stars falling from the sky and a bunch of different things like that, the world is going to come out and say with some scientific explanation how all that happened, because they're not going to want to admit that it's God. And so, and we'll see. We progress that they're gonna want to do. And eventually everybody's going to admit that it is God. So.
Are we allowed to ask you what, in your opinion, is the religion is? Or can I give you my opinion? My opinion is the Roman Catholics, because the Pope right now is a Jesuit. And I was raised Catholic.
Okay.
And Jesuits, if you wanted somebody killed, you paid a Jesuit. And they would go out and kill anybody. They would lie in front of the court. Oh yes, she is a slut. She is sleeping with him and him.
Yeah.
To get, instead of a divorce, she gets.
Okay. Maybe.
It's what's the most powerful religion right now in the world, and it's growing.
Okay.
And the head man is a Jesuit.
Okay. I don't know. I hadn't considered that one. And it's entirely, like I say, it's entirely possible. I was thinking some of the more extreme religions in the world that we have, or some of the religions in the world that have extremists in them, and
But the Catholic religion is the world's biggest, the world's largest.
Yeah.
So it's easier for a huge
Right.
amount to take over smaller areas than a
Right.
small one trying to take over huge areas.
Right. So, I don't know, the one that I was reading about and that kind of was, in the back of my mind was Islamic religion, because they're growing. Again, they're trying to get our laws changed to match theirs, so we have Sharia law and all that stuff. And so and what's really happening is that they're not, and what you're saying is because they're already so big that it'll be easier for them to take over. They're infiltrating, or they're coming in and setting up their own beliefs and their own laws and places where they're free to do it, like here, and eventually it's, you're seeing in England that
Mhm.
one of the major, basically almost the biggest religion over there now is Muslim.
Germany has that problem too, don't they?
Yeah, so they're coming in, and it's eventually getting to be that they're outnumbering the other religions in certain pockets and areas of the world, and that could be, it continues to grow over the years, and that could be, but what you're saying is entirely possible too. I don't know, and that's, again, we're just speculating when we say.
And it's the
one or the other.
richest religion in the world.
Yep. So so I don't know. I don't know who it's gonna be, and really, I really hope I'm not here to find out.
Yeah. Well, my grandson goes to a church right down there in East Plains. And my two daughters has been investigating it because there's something strange going on there, and he's hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
He don't believe in birthdays. He don't believe in celebrating Christmas. He don't
Yeah.
believe in nothing like
There's
that. And they don't believe in eating pork. They don't
one.
believe in eating unclean stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's part of the Old Testament.
yeah,
So
I know that. But the thing is he said something about donating land to the church, and he wouldn't have to pay taxes on it, but it would still be his.
It's like the old saying, the check's in the mail.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of there's a lot of funky stuff going on, and there's even in the under the Christian name or whatever and stuff.
Right.
And so
I don't know what it's called, but
right. Yeah.
it's we think it's a cross between maybe I
I
haven't been
don't
to a church.
know. We don't want to speculate.
I don't know.
So
No.
we don't want to speculate because
That's why
again, I want to remind everybody that we are recording, and this does get posted on YouTube.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so we're not trying to start trouble with other
Right.
denominations and things
I just don't.
we're trying to
don't know
spread
what it is.
spread the
Really?
belief, what and stuff. So okay, fifth seal. We got to hurry up and get this done. Fifth seal is 9 through 11. That's what I need to do. Okay. When the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of all those who had been martyred for the word of God and for being faithful in their testimony. They shouted to the Lord and said, O sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long before you judge the people who belong to this world and avenge our blood for what they have done to us? Then a white robe was given to them, and they were told to rest a little longer until the full number of their brothers and sisters, their fellow servants of Jesus, who were to be martyred, had joined them. Okay, so here we see we're back. This judgment is specifically in heaven. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be martyred. It's going to be for the faith, will refuse to denounce their faith and everything. And that's going to be part of the first four judgments. And there's already, throughout human history, where people have been martyred, going on every day in this world. And so, are these people just the ones from the tribulation period? Or is it all martyrs throughout, including the disciples? All martyrs throughout history. Because 10 of the original 12 disciples were martyred. One committed suicide, in Judas, and then John died of natural causes in his home in Ephesus.
Where's he at, dude?
I don't know, that's what he just said, not biblical. He come out of the Bible.
You still need to show me where it says that he will remain alive. Because it says, Jesus said, if I want him to remain alive. Yeah, there's a big if there, okay? So, anyways, but there's a lot of back and forth on this too. And again, there's a lot of issues. A lot of people that think that this is not all the martyrs throughout all of time, you know, since Jesus was here on the earth, you know, and then that it's just the ones during this period of time when the judgment started. Okay, now to me that kind of, you know, and I know people will be saved after the judgment starts. That's one of the reasons why God does all this, is because He's trying to reach people. God tries to reach people in ways, whatever means necessary to get their attention. And so there are going to be people that are going to be saved. How many? We don't know. And, you know, if the church is raptured at this point, then obviously there's not going to be as many people here to help others find the truth. So, you know, I don't know. But again, we don't want to get hung up on this, okay? But they're asking for the people that killed them to want to know when God's going to judge the world and judge these people, okay? So, you know, they want to, because even though people that have committed huge atrocities throughout human history, and, you know, all these rulers in the early centuries, and some of the rulers that have tried to conquer the world in later centuries, you know, and have the blood of so many people on their hands. Even though they're not here anymore, they're dead, they haven't been fully judged. And so their judgment day is coming. And it'll be when everybody gets judged. Now, as Christians, we don't get judged on what we did before we were saved. Our actions and our different things that we do after, the good, you know, the things we do for God and whatever, is all going to be judged. And, you know, if it gets burned up, then it wasn't as much, and our heaven experience is less in some ways, is the major.
Well, I want to ask something.
Okay.
And this is
Yeah.
Okay. If we're not being judged when we deny, I know there's no purgatory. Where are you at?
What do you mean, where are you at?
Well, I'm talking about where are you at? I mean, you hadn't been.
Ask where the soul's at after you die if you haven't gone straight to heaven. Where are you waiting for Judgment Day?
The ones that aren't going to heaven are in Hades. They're in something like Hades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. They're in a form of hell right now. They're not in heaven. They're in a form of hell. So is one belief. The other belief is that people that are not Christians, they're just dead. Their souls are whatever. But I don't, you know, if the soul leaves the Christian's body and goes to heaven, and the body is destroyed one way or the other, then the soul.
I think my soul will automatically go on to heaven.
That's, as a Christian, yes, that's
what I believe,
right.
But then some people don't believe
Jesus told
that.
it, right? Some people don't believe that, but Jesus told the thief on the cross, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And
Yes,
so
he did.
that represents to myself and a lot of people that when we die, we will go. Others believe that we have what's called a soul sleep, where you die, you rest, and that passage I just read, where those that are martyred are told to rest a little longer. That hangs people up sometimes because they're, you know, he's saying rest. Well, rest could mean any number of things. It could mean sleep. It could mean just kind of relax. We're going to get to this kind of thing, you know. Don't, you know. So, and I would have to look up the original Greek to see the translations of the word and how we got to rest on that. And does the King James say rest a little longer? Number 11.
I think it is.
Yes, rest. Should
Rest
yeah.
yet for
Yeah.
a little season.
Right.
So that might make
A
it
little
longer.
longer, right, exactly. So, you know, but the souls of those that aren't a Christian, yes, we already know that they're not going to be in heaven, but they're not going to get their full judgment. They're in a holding place, like a Hades or purgatory, if you want to call it that, or whatever. They're basically the same thing that was going on before Jesus came in the story of the rich man and Lazarus. Is that they're in torment already. They have been judged to a degree, but they haven't received their final judgment yet. And so that's what it talks about. Is that those that have killed and done all these things in the world have not received their final judgment. yes, they're in torment and torture and some sort of a hell now, but their final judgment when the devil hasn't been finally judged yet either. And that's all gonna happen at the same time. And so that, at the very end. And so that's what, you know, but the souls of those that are not Christians are in a hell kind of place. Whatever you wanna choose to call it, purgatory, Hades, you know, Atlanta, I don't know.
Bruce, aren't there a verse in the Bible? If I was little when my Uncle Ross, he was a preacher,
Okay,
and I thought I heard him say to my mom, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord.
yes, that's an image, yes. So,
I wasn't but about 6 or 7 years old, but
Yeah.
I thought that's what I heard him tell.
yep, that's, I can't tell you where exactly it is right now, but it's there, yeah,
That
So-
we're going straight where we're gonna go.
right.
Yeah.